Yo, book nerds. Oh my gosh, I have a lot to talk about today. I finally read The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Man, was this way overdue. I feel like everybody I know read this in high school. My brother just read this in high school a couple weeks ago. I never did. It was never assigned to me. And I so wanted to read this because so many of my classes, so many of my textbooks, just so many things in general reference this. And I did not get it because I hadn't read it, so it just went right over my head. But oh my gosh, what a wonderful book. I did not expect the story that I got, but I'm so happy that I finally read this. I did not expect everyone in this story to be awful. Like, they are all awful people. And so, like, I hated this book, but I loved this book. Like, it made me so angry at parts, and I could not put it down. I devoured this. Since this book is so short, it is really hard to talk about it without spoiling things. So here is your spoiler alert, because I just need to talk about this book. I need to. This book is so messy. Everyone is betraying everybody. At the beginning of the book, I really related to Daisy. Daisy is betrayed by her husband Tom because Tom is cheating on her. And honestly, like, from the get-go, I related to Daisy because I used to be married and I got cheated on. And I was also pregnant when I got cheated on, and then I went through a divorce and I ended up being single with a brand new baby. And so, like, I related to Daisy because she's also got a baby and she's being cheated on. So, like, from the get-go, I identified with her for a while. As the story progressed, I started not to like Daisy and not to trust her. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So you have Tom betraying Daisy, and Tom is cheating with Myrtle, who is a married woman. So Myrtle is betraying her husband, George. And then eventually you have Daisy hooking up with J. Gatsby, so then Daisy is betraying her husband. And then you have Nick, who's the narrator, and Nick is such a pushover. He drives me crazy. I want to smack him all the time. But he's pretty much betraying everybody. Nick is cousins to Daisy, yet he hangs out with Tom, who's cheating on his cousin. So he's kind of betraying Daisy. But then Nick is friends with Tom from college, so when Nick starts hanging out with Jay Gatsby, who Daisy's cheating on Tom with, Nick is kind of betraying his friendship with Tom too. So Nick is not innocent. He is not. He is just such a pushover, though. He just does what people tell him and just goes along with things. And he drives me crazy. I want to smack him. And at first I thought that Jay Gatsby was innocent in all of this. But then you find out that he dated Daisy before she was married to Tom, and that he only was with her to get some. But then, after getting some, he fell in love with her, so, like, he sort of betrays Daisy too at the beginning. So he's not innocent either. So, like, everyone is just betraying everybody. Nobody's safe. But seriously, like, I did not expect all these different love triangles when I started reading this book. I thought I was getting a story about this mysterious Jay Gatsby who's super rich, and I did, but I did not expect all these other different layers. There is more layers in this tiny book than some big chonkers that I've read before. So, when it comes to Daisy, like I said, I related to her at first, but then as things progressed, I started not to trust her because there was a lot of foreshadowing, and I knew as I read that it was amping up to something big and something bad. I just didn't know what. But basically, it's established pretty early on that Daisy is not a Catholic, so she's not against divorce. At least religiously, she's not against divorce. We don't know personally. So it's stated outright that, like, she could get a divorce and leave Tom if she's unhappy. And she could get a divorce and go be with Jay Gatsby, who is supposedly the love of her life. So why doesn't she? Like, as someone that has been through a divorce and a divorce with a child involved, I know how messy it is, so I get that. But if she really wanted to be with Gatsby, she was able to leave. It's established, like, but she doesn't. So, like, in my mind as I read, I was like, is she just using Gatsby? Is she gonna just turn around and hurt him? Like, is she just using him to get revenge on her husband? And so, like, I started not to trust her. In the end, I think Daisy is much more complicated of a character. She's not just good or bad. It's not black and white like that. She is very gray. She's been abused, manipulated, etc., controlled, and she just doesn't know how to get out. And whether or not she really does want Gatsby, that can be argued either way, but she just is stuck. She's just stuck. So Gatsby, oh my gosh, like, this is, so then more foreshadowing, like, Gatsby, he built up such ideas around Daisy. He was in love with her since they first dated. He wanted to marry her. He's been obsessed with her for the last 5 years. And he built up all these ideas in his head, and there is no way Daisy was ever going to live up to them. Like, Nick even says it at one point that there was no way that Daisy could live up to his expectations. He's living in a fantasy world. He wants Daisy to run away with him and marry him and leave her husband, which may have been the best choice for her, but she doesn't do it, and he can't force her. And so, yeah, of course, she is not going to live up to the standards that he has set for her. He's put her up on this pedestal, and she's not perfect. He's just obsessed with her, and it was bound to fail. Then that ending, like, that ending came out of nowhere, guys. Like, if you have read this book, you know what I'm talking about. I did not expect Daisy to run over Myrtle. I did not expect her husband then to go and shoot Gatsby. Like, oh my gosh. I know Tom pointed the finger at Gatsby. Like, I knew that before Nick discovered it later. Like, I just knew it. I knew it. Because Tom is a jerk. Like, he's an asshole. And then I was so sad when nobody came to Gatsby's funeral. Like, what the hell? It just goes to show that money can't buy you friends. Money can't buy you the future that you want. And money doesn't go with you when you die. Like, those are some of the big themes of this book. Money's not everything. I am just seriously obsessed with this book. I can't stop thinking about it. I wish it were longer than it is because I wasn't ready for it to be done. I just want to keep reading it. I know this will be one that I reread someday because this is just an amazing book. I can't believe it. On a side note, I don't think I've ever read a book that has a character named Jordan in it that's a girl. I'm trying to think of all the ones on my shelf. I don't think that there is a character that is Jordan that's a girl, so I liked that because I don't see my name in books very often, but I didn't really like Jordan as a character either. She lies a lot. Side note, sorry, distracted. But yeah, I am obsessed with this book. I can't stop thinking about it. I definitely have a book hangover, and I know whatever I read after this is not going to live up to this, so yeah. I do have a book that I'm going to read after this, but I'm not going to talk about it on this video because I think that it deserves a little bit more of an explanation, so I will give that to you in another video. But yeah, that book is not going to live up to this book. It's just not. Some other, like, random things about this book. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I heard that the artist that did this cover design finished this before the novel was published, and then Fitzgerald, like, wrote this cover design into the story. So that's, like, where the eyes come from on the billboard. I'm not sure if that's true. I haven't done the research, but that's what I've heard. And that's pretty interesting. Like, I don't really have anything else to say about that. If you know if that's true or not, let me know in the comments. I also heard, and again, don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that Fitzgerald passed away thinking that this book was a failure. So that's really sad because obviously this book is a huge, huge success nowadays, and it definitely deserves that status. So that's too bad that he passed away before he got to see it succeed. Another little fun tidbit about F. Scott Fitzgerald, he was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is not very far from where I live. I live in Minnesota. I have been to St. Paul a million times. So that was interesting for me to learn. I did not know that before. This book was also published in 1925. So according to my definition, this is almost a classic. I consider this a modern classic right now, but it will definitely take the title of classic in 2 years. 2 years, it will definitely take that title. It deserves it. If you have not read this book, go read it right now. I waited way too long to read it, and I know that this review was just like a ramble about everything about this book, but I just had to get it out. I had to talk about it. So yeah, I loved it and hated it at the same time. It made me so mad, but I loved it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've read it, if you loved it, hated it, and if you haven't read it, seriously, go read it. Go read it right now. That was a super long ramble about this book. I hope you guys got something out of this video. That is all for me this week, and I will see you guys next Monday. Hit like and subscribe. Thanks for talking books with me.